Great performance coach, obviously helps with the basketball, and then I have like really great people around me that allow me to vent. And I think that sometimes like people forget like I have feelings, like I'm a real individual, like I feel things and I have emotions and I get emotional and I get frustrated and I get sad and I get upset, I get happy, I get joyful, and like I feel and experience all that stuff. But at the same time, like I have really thick skin, and I think also I always try to remind myself is like social media is not always reality, and that is really lost on people. And I think we get so down a rabbit hole all the time that you read all these things and you're like, oh, that has to be true, or that has to be what people really think of me, or that has to be what the young girl thinks of me that's showing up. Like, that's not true. Like,
let me be very direct with you right now, because what is happening in women's basketball at this very moment deserves your full and undivided attention. Not tomorrow, not after the highlights, right now. Because handed her that microphone are probably sitting somewhere right now, regretting every single second of that decision.
Young girls and the young boys, they absolutely love the way you play. They love the way you carry yourself. And sure, there's going to be people that don't always agree with your playing style or how you carry yourself, and that's okay. That might mean you're doing something right too. Not everybody needs to love you, but just continue to carry yourself in the correct manner. But there's certainly days that are hard. I would never lie about that. Not everything is amazing and sunny all the time, but I always try to remind myself, like, I'm so lucky and fortunate I get to play a game for a living, so I don't have too much to complain about, and I certainly haven't lost the love and joy that I have for basketball. So, and I always try to remind myself, like, I'm here to win a championship, and I haven't done that yet, so let's do that.
Genuine respect. Because standing up for yourself in an environment that has made it very clear it would prefer your silence is one of the hardest things any public figure can do.
How do you square the way that you are covered with who you know yourself to be?
I think there's just like a false characterization of who I am sometimes. Like, and I get it. Like, as a reporter or as a blogger, like, you can write an opinion piece and that's your job and whatever. But at the same time, like, you don't know me. Like, we've never had a conversation. I get people have a job to do, but at the same time, like, don't make accusations about my character and who I am when you don't know me. I understand this is your job and this is your profession and this is what you get to do, and basketball is my profession and what I get to do. And the reason I play it is when I step in between the lines, I love it. And that's what's so fun about it for me is like I get to compete. This was always my dream, and nobody should ever try to take that away from me. Like, the love and the joy that I have for the game, and they haven't and they won't, because it's my goal to win championships, and I know that I can help this team do that. And that's always what I remind myself in the moments that things go downhill. It just makes you work harder.
Watching content creators weaponize race as a tool to generate clicks and engagement at her expense. She is done with all of it. And rather than sit quietly and absorb it, she is fighting back with in her personal life either. She took that photograph with Barack Obama. She stood in that moment. She embraced it. She did not let the noise around her dictate the way she moves through the world. She is, or you cannot stand her. You have to respect that. You have to respect an athlete who has built. That is where it gets really interesting. During the WNBA three-point contest, which Caitlin Clark notably chose not to participate in, the real story was not happening on the court. It was happening in front of a microphone. And Caitlin Clark used that moment to address something that has been swirling around women's basketball like a storm cloud that nobody wants to acknowledge directly. The issue of death threats. The issue of online toxicity. The issue of players claiming that what happens on social media is bleeding into the fabric of their real lives and creating genuine fear. And what did Caitlin Clark say about it? She said something simple and something incredibly important. Social media is not reality. Read that again. Social media is not reality. She said it plainly, she said it with conviction, and honestly, she said something that a lot of people across a lot of different platforms need to hear and absorb right now. Here is the truth about what she was pointing at. The online world and the real world are two completely different places operating under two completely different rules. What lives on a screen, what gets typed into a comment section, what exists in the form of a viral post or a controversial tweet, that is not the full picture of anyone's life. It is not the full picture of who a person is or what their actual daily experience looks like. And when you start confusing the two, when you start allowing the chaos of a comment section to define your mental state, to dictate your peace, to determine your sense of safety, you have given something extraordinarily precious away. You have handed your inner world over to strangers on the internet who do not know you, who will never meet you, and who will move on to the next trending topic by tomorrow morning. This is not a dismissal of real threats. This is not a suggestion that nobody should take safety seriously. What this is a reality check about perspective, about the difference between what is loud online and what is true in your actual life. And Clark is right. There is a critical difference between the two, and protecting your peace means understanding where that line is and refusing to let it blur. Think about how she framed it. When she is done playing basketball, she goes home. She goes back to being a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a friend, a person. She does not carry the weight of every hot take, every criticism, every racially charged piece of content that some creator posted to generate outrage and monetize her name. She sets it down. She walks away from it. She returns to what is real. And that is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is the kind of emotional intelligence that most people spend decades trying to develop. The same principle applies to anyone who creates content, who builds any kind of public-facing platform. The moment you let the performance become your identity, the moment you cannot separate the screen version of yourself from the person who exists when all the cameras are off, that is when you start losing. Because the screen is not the truth. The comments are not the truth. The metrics are not the truth. The truth is what happens when the phone goes down, when the studio lights go off, when it is just you and the people who genuinely know you and love you in the quiet of an ordinary evening. That is your reality. That is what matters. Everything else is noise. Caitlin Clark understands this at a level that is frankly remarkable for someone her age, operating under the kind of spotlight she operates under. She understands that the digital world will always be loud. It will always have opinions. It will always find something to be outraged about, something to debate, something to make into a controversy. And she has made a decision, a conscious and deliberate decision, not to let that world dictate the temperature of her internal life. She keeps those two spaces separate. And she is essentially extending that wisdom to everyone around her by saying it out loud in front of an audience. Now, you might be asking yourself why it matters that she skipped the three-point contest. And here's what I believe. There is a very strong case to be made that her decision not to participate had everything to do with what she was doing with that microphone. She had things to say, important things, things she had clearly been thinking about, processing, and preparing to address. And rather than limit herself to the format of a competition, she chose the format of a conversation. She chose access. She chose the interview chair and the podcast seat and the open-ended question over the structured event. And look what came out of it. An honest, unfiltered perspective on the league, on the media, on the nature of public life in the digital age that is resonating with people far beyond the world of basketball. That is the move of someone who is thinking about more than just the game. That is the move of someone who understands that she has a voice, and that the voice is arguably more powerful right now than anything she does on the court, as extraordinary as that is. She is using it with purpose, she is using it strategically, and she is using it without fear. There are players in this league and across professional sports who have been handed the same microphones and the same platforms and have chosen to say as little as possible, to protect themselves from backlash by remaining vague and non-committal. And that is a choice, a valid one, but it is not the choice Caitlin Clark is making. She is choosing to be specific. She is choosing to name the issues, the media, the race bait content, the culture of outrage that surrounds her name without her permission. She is calling it what it is and putting it on record. And the response from people who have been watching this play out has been overwhelmingly supportive. Because there is something deeply satisfying about watching someone refuse to be a punching bag. There is something that resonates at a fundamental human level when a person who is being used, who is being talked about, who is being defined by everyone except themselves, finally stands up and says, "Enough. I will define myself. I will speak for myself. I will stand on what I believe and I will not move for anyone." That is what Caitlin Clark is doing. That is the through line of every interview, every podcast appearance, every moment she has chosen to take that microphone and use it fully. She is asserting ownership over her own story. And in a media landscape that has spent enormous energy trying to write that story for her, often in ways that are divisive and dishonest, and designed to generate conflict rather than clarity, That ownership is everything. Love her. Disagree with her. Have complicated feelings about everything she represents in the broader cultural conversation around women's sports. All of that is valid. All of that is part of being a fan or a critic or a casual observer. But respect? Respect is non-negotiable because Caitlin Clark has built something real. She has built a brand, a following, a cultural presence that transcends sport, and she has done it while being picked apart from every direction. She has done it while being used as a symbol by people on every side of every argument. She has done it while watching her name become clickbait, while watching content designed to pit people against each other be built around her image. And through all of that, she has not crumbled. She has not retreated. She has not outsourced her voice to a PR team and gone quiet. She has leaned in. She has spoken up. She has chosen the harder path, the more vulnerable path, the path that guarantees more criticism, because she clearly believes that saying the truth out loud is worth whatever comes after it. That is standing on principle. That is what integrity actually looks like when it is not just a word on a motivational poster, but a genuine behavioral commitment made in real time, in real pressure, in front of a real audience. Caitlin Clark is doing that, right now, in this moment, during what is already one of the most scrutinized seasons in the history of women's professional basketball. So the next time someone places a microphone in front of her, do not expect her to say nothing. Do not expect her to deflect and defer and smile and change the subject. Expect her to talk. Expect her to say exactly what she thinks, with clarity and directness and the quiet confidence of someone who has already decided that she would rather be honest than comfortable. Because that is who she is. That is the brand she has built, not just through her jump shot and her handles and her extraordinary basketball IQ, but through moments like these, through choosing her words as carefully and as boldly as she chooses her passes, through understanding that the game she plays on the court and the game she plays in the public conversation are both arenas, and she intends to compete in both of them at the highest possible level. And right now, by every measure that matters, she is winning.